The galaxy did not fear Earth. It pitied it. Humans were young compared to the ancient alien civilizations. They argued too much. They expanded too fast. They refused to bow to larger powers. Many species called them reckless, so when the High Alliance marked Earth as a future threat, few protested. On the day the sky changed, people on Earth were living normal lives. A mother in Mumbai was walking her son to school. A farmer in Brazil was checking his crops. Astronauts were repairing a station above the planet. Then the stars began to disappear. At first, scientists thought it was a glitch in the satellites, but it was not a glitch. It was ships. Thousands of them. They did not enter with loud explosions or dramatic speeches. They arrived in perfect silence. Black shapes covered the sky like a second night. Governments tried to send messages. No answer. Then a single beam of light fell from orbit. It erased a city. No warning, no mercy. Panic spread across the planet. News channels broke down. Military forces launched everything they had: missiles, fighters, orbital defense cannons. Humans fought with courage, but their technology was centuries behind. Alien ships moved like ghosts. Human weapons barely scratched their shields. Within hours, the oceans near major cities began to boil from orbital strikes. Satellites were destroyed. Power grids collapsed. Smoke covered continents. Still, humans did not surrender. Fighter pilots flew into impossible battles. Soldiers protected evacuation ships. Scientists tried to send distress calls into deep space. One message managed to escape before the global networks fell. It was not a threat. It was not a cry for mercy. It was a promise. If we survive, we will return. The final strike came at sunset over the Pacific Ocean. A massive energy wave swept across the surface of the planet. Forests burned. Cities turned to ash. The sky became red. From space, Earth looked broken. The Alliance fleet watched for life signs. Most were gone. They marked the operation complete. They believed humanity was extinct. But deep under the planet's crust, in hidden bunkers and secret launch tunnels, small signals still moved. Small ships escaped into the dark. And in the cold silence of space, humanity carried one thing with them: memory. When the sky burned, a hidden protocol activated beneath the ruins of Earth. It had been created long before the invasion, not because humans expected certain defeat, but because they understood risk. They always prepared for the worst. Deep below mountains, under deserts, and beneath the ocean floor, sealed bunkers opened. Inside them were colony ships. Not warships, not escape pods, but vessels built for survival. As alien strikes continued above, launch tunnels ignited. Massive doors cracked open through rock and steel. One by one, the last human ships rose through fire and smoke. Many were destroyed before reaching orbit, but some made it. On board those ships were not presidents or celebrities. There was no time for status. The evacuation system had chosen by role: engineers, doctors, farmers, soldiers, teachers, children. Humanity did not save its leaders. It saved its future. From orbit, the escape ships could see Earth dying. Continents glowed red. Storms of ash covered half the planet. The oceans reflected burning cities. Many aboard the ships cried. Some stood in silence. One young girl pressed her hand against the viewing glass and whispered goodbye to a world she would never walk again. The ships did not travel together. That would make them easier to detect. They scattered in different directions, using experimental engines that bent gravity in unstable ways. The alien fleet detected some of them. Several were hunted down in deep space. But the smallest ships with weak signatures slipped past scanners and drifted into the dark between stars. Days turned into months. Supplies were tight. People slept in rotation. Lights were dimmed to save energy. The ships carried frozen embryos, seed banks, animal DNA archives, small pieces of Earth's life. Humanity was no longer a planet. It was a memory moving through space. On the largest surviving ship, a quiet meeting took place among the remaining commanders. They understood something clearly. They could not fight now. They could not return soon. They would need time, generations, maybe centuries. But one decision united every survivor. They would not forget. They would not forgive. And one day, when they were strong enough, they would go home. The surviving human ships traveled for many years. They avoided known star systems. They shut down signals. They moved slowly and carefully like wounded animals hiding in tall grass. Many aboard the ships grew old during the journey. Some died before seeing land again. Children were born in metal corridors under artificial lights. They learned about Earth from recordings, blue oceans, green forests, birds singing in morning sunlight. To them, Earth sounded like a dream. After decades of searching, one ship found a system far beyond mapped space. The star was small and weak. Around it circled a cold, rocky planet. It had no cities, no signs of alien life, no beauty, but it was safe. The planet's surface was covered in ice and gray stone. The air was thin and toxic. Temperatures dropped far below freezing at night. Still, the human leaders made a choice. This would be their new beginning. They named it New Terra. Landing was difficult. Several ships were too damaged and crashed during descent. But enough survived. The first years were brutal. They lived inside their ships at first, using them as shelters. Then they began digging underground habitats to escape the cold winds. They built reactors for power. They grew food in hydroponic farms under artificial light. Every day was a fight. But humans had always been good at surviving impossible worlds. The old generation, the ones who remembered Earth, worked without rest. They trained the young, they told them stories, not only about Earth's beauty, but about its fall. They did not hide the truth. They wanted the children to understand what was lost. Years passed. The first city dome rose above the frozen ground, then another, then factories, then research centers. New Terra slowly transformed from a graveyard refuge into a living colony. But something important shaped this new society. They did not build monuments. They did not waste resources on comfort. They built shipyards. Massive construction platforms formed in orbit around the cold planet. The young generation watched from observation windows as the first new human warship took shape in space. They asked why they were building weapons instead of gardens. And their parents answered with simple words, "Because we will never run again." Time moved differently on New Terra. The first generation worked to survive. The second learned to improve. The third began to plan. 300 years passed. The people who had seen Earth with their own eyes were gone. But their memories were not. Every child on New Terra studied the fall of Earth in school. They did not learn it as a story of defeat. They learned it as a lesson. Human scientists made fast progress. Hard life forced innovation. They could not waste energy. They could not waste materials. Every machine had to be efficient. Every design had to be strong. Their engineers developed new drive systems that bent gravity more smoothly. Their weapons research focused on precision, not noise. Their ships were built to hide in darkness, not to shine in glory. They did not want attention. They wanted advantage. In orbit, the shipyards expanded into giant rings of steel and light. From far away, New Terra looked quiet and weak. But hidden in its shadow were fleets under construction. Not thousands yet, but enough to protect themselves. Meanwhile, silent probes were launched into deep space. These probes traveled slowly, avoiding known trade routes. They listened. They recorded alien communications. They studied political changes in the galaxy. The alliance that destroyed Earth still existed. It had grown rich and powerful. It had fought other wars. It had signed treaties. It had forgotten humanity. Humans had not forgotten them. On New Terra, a new council formed. It was not led by kings or dictators. It was led by strategists, scientists, and historians. They asked one question again and again. When will we be ready? Some wanted revenge immediately. Others warned patience was their greatest weapon. So they waited. 500 years passed. Then 1,000, New Terra became strong. Its cities spread across the frozen world. Its population grew into millions. Its fleet quietly expanded in orbit, hidden by advanced cloaking fields. The galaxy believed humans were extinct. That belief became humanity's shield. By the time 3,000 years had passed since Earth burned, humans were no longer refugees. They were something else. They were patient. And patience over centuries had turned into power. For 3,000 years, no human ship had returned to the Sol system. It was forbidden. Not by law, but by pain. Sol was a grave. But silence cannot last forever. A small reconnaissance vessel named Quiet Resolve was chosen for a mission. It was one of the most advanced ships ever built on New Terra. Its hull absorbed radar signals. Its engines left almost no trace in space. Even its heat output was carefully controlled. Only 12 people were on board. They were not soldiers. They were observers. As the ship approached the outer edge of the Sol system, every person felt the weight of history pressing on them. This was where humanity was born. This was where it almost ended. The crew expected to find ruins. They expected silence. They were wrong. Long-range scans detected activity near the asteroid belt. Mining platforms, industrial ships, cargo routes. Someone was working inside humanity's home system. The crew moved closer, staying hidden behind drifting debris. Then they saw Earth. It was not completely destroyed. The planet still existed, scarred, cracked, its atmosphere thin and unstable. Large sections of the surface were dark and lifeless. And above it, alien orbital stations circled like parasites. Massive drills cut into the planet's crust. Water extraction systems pulled what remained of the oceans into storage vessels. Automated harvesters stripped minerals from continents that once held cities. Earth was not a memorial. It was a resource field. Inside the observation room of quiet resolve, no one spoke. A young officer zoomed the visual feed toward what had once been a major coastline. Broken structures were still visible beneath ash and dust. One crew member whispered, "They're selling our world." Encrypted communications confirmed it. The Alliance had declared Sol an abandoned system centuries ago. Earth was categorized as a dead industrial planet, open for legal extraction. To them, it was just another rock. To humanity, it was everything. The captain recorded every image, every data packet. Then she sent a single encrypted burst transmission back to New Terra. It contained no emotional message, only facts. But when the High Council received the footage, something changed. 3,000 years of patience reached its limit. Earth was no longer just a memory. It was being dismantled piece by piece, and humanity decided it was time to come home. The footage from Sol was played in complete silence. Inside the High Council chamber on New Terra, hundreds of leaders watched Earth being torn apart. No one interrupted. No one argued while the images moved across the screen. The cracked oceans, the broken continents, the alien stations drilling into the planet's bones. When the recording ended, the room remained quiet for a long time. 3,000 years of planning had led to this moment. The oldest historian in the chamber stood first. His voice was calm. "Earth is not just territory," he said, "it is identity." A military commander followed. "We are ready. Our fleet can win localized engagements. Against a full Alliance armada, the outcome is uncertain, but surprise gives us advantage." A scientist added, "If we wait longer, our power will grow, but so will theirs." The debate lasted for 12 hours. Some feared that open war would expose New Terra's location. Others believed that doing nothing would destroy the spirit of humanity. This was not a vote of anger. It was a vote of direction. Outside the chamber, millions of citizens waited. News networks did not show panic. They showed history lessons. Children gathered in classrooms to watch archived images of Earth before the fall. People were not shouting for blood. They were asking one question: who are we if we let this continue? At the end of the debate, the Council initiated the Founders' Protocol, a law written by the first survivors. It required a full planetary vote for any action that could begin interstellar war. Across New Terra, secure terminals activated. Every adult citizen received the same simple choice: reclaim Sol, yes or no. The voting window lasted 1 hour. No speeches, no campaigns, just decision. When the results appeared, they were clear. 92% voted yes. There were no celebrations, no cheering, only quiet understanding. Orders were sent to orbital command. Cloaked shipyards powered up. Energy cores ignited across the fleet. Weapons systems that had never fired in battle came online for the first time. In space above the frozen planet, thousands of warships began to move into formation. Humanity was not acting from rage. They were acting from memory. And memory, after 3,000 years, had become stronger than fear. The human fleet moved like ghosts through the void of space. No signals were sent. No flares were lit. Ships glided in silence, hidden by cloaking fields that bent light and shadow. From afar, the galaxy saw nothing unusual. Only empty blackness stretched between stars. On board the lead ship, the Eternal Resolve, Captain Leona stared at the Sol system's position on the display. The planet she had never touched, the world her ancestors had lost, glimmered like a scar. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "This is our home." Around her, the fleet followed a single protocol: observe, plan, strike. Nothing was left to chance. Every possible orbital path, every alien station, every ship's angle had been calculated over decades. The aliens had grown comfortable. They had mined Earth for centuries without opposition. They believed humanity extinct. They had no reason to suspect hidden eyes, silent observers, waiting in the dark. Then the first probe detected movement, not from the fleet, from the alien armada stationed near Mars. Hundreds of ships had been moved into formation, as if they felt something in the darkness. A shiver of instinct traveled through the humans' sensors. The aliens were cautious. They had no reason to be, yet some warning inside their programming whispered danger. Captain Leona called a council across the fleet. "Hold positions," she said. "We are shadows, we are patients. Let them reveal themselves first." Hours passed. The alien fleet remained unmoving. Patrol drones circled Earth's orbit. Harvesters continued to strip the oceans. Life on the planet below was fragile and silent. And yet humans waited. Time had changed them, not in body, not in size, but in thought. They had learned that victory came not to the angry, but to the patient. They had studied the galaxy, learned its weaknesses, waited for the moment when fear and surprise could become weapons. Finally, the youngest officer aboard Eternal Resolve spoke. Her voice trembled. "Captain, they don't see us." Leona nodded. She placed her hand on the control console. The fleet moved closer, weaving between asteroids, slipping through shadows. Not a single beam betrayed their presence. The galaxy had forgotten Earth. The galaxy had forgotten humans. But humans had not forgotten the galaxy. And in the cold, empty space around Sol, history was about to awaken. The first whispers of a return spread through the fleet, carried in silent vibrations of engines and shields. Humans were ready. The ghosts of Earth had returned, and the galaxy would never see them coming. The human fleet had waited long enough. No one spoke on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve. Only the soft hum of engines and the occasional click of consoles filled the silence. Every captain across the fleet knew the same truth. Patience had its reward. Then in a single instant the order came. "Engage!" It was not a roar. It was not a call for glory. It was a whisper that carried centuries of memory. Human ships moved as one. Gravity well weapons activated. Hidden cannons unfolded from their hulls. Missiles, shaped like sharp stars, launched silently into space. Cloaking fields flickered off for fractions of a second, enough to strike, enough to vanish again. The alien mining fleet never saw it coming. Platforms that had been stripping Earth for generations exploded in brilliant bursts of light. Drones collapsed mid-flight. Transport ships spun into debris. Energy shields melted as humans' adaptive weapons tested every weak point. Panic spread through the aliens' ranks. Some scrambled to respond. Others fired blindly, hitting nothing but empty space. Every move the humans made was calculated. Every strike minimized risk to their own ships. Above the Pacific, orbital stations that had once dominated humanity's home were shredded in minutes. Cities below were no longer targets. Earth was to be reclaimed, not desecrated further. Amid the chaos, human pilots executed maneuvers their ancestors could only dream of. Ships curved through gravity wells, slingshotting past asteroids, disappearing and reappearing behind enemy lines. Missiles bent around defenses like living things. From the bridge of Eternal Resolve, Captain Leona watched every display with calm focus. She did not shout orders. The fleet was ready, trained for this exact moment. Every human aboard had grown up hearing stories of the fall. Every one of them carried the memory of home. That memory made them precise, that memory made them unstoppable. Within 7 minutes, the alien mining fleet was crippled. Their stations, once thought indestructible, now floated in pieces across Sol orbit. Only a single vessel escaped, carrying the news back to the wider galaxy. The humans did not celebrate. There was no cheering, no fanfare. Their eyes turned to Earth, scarred but still alive. The first strike was not revenge. It was a statement. The galaxy had ignored humanity for 3,000 years. No longer. Humanity had returned. And this was only the beginning. After the first strike, the human fleet did not chase the fleeing alien vessel. They did not celebrate. They did not fire a second shot. Instead, they did something unexpected. They broadcasted a message across every frequency the galaxy could receive. It was simple, clear, and terrifying in its calmness. We are human. We were born on Earth. You thought you ended us. You mined our home. You stripped it bare. You counted us extinct. We are alive. Touch Earth again, and we will finish what you started. The message reached hundreds of worlds. Systems that had once ignored Earth now trembled. Traders stopped their shipments. Governments called emergency meetings. Alliances that had never spoken to each other began to debate what had happened. No one in the galaxy had seen humans this way before. Not angry, not panicked, not begging. Just patient and unstoppable. On New Terra, the High Council watched live feeds from the fleet. Every ship, every strike, every broadcast had been coordinated for centuries. Every engineer, every pilot, every scientist who had worked in silence for thousands of years now knew they had succeeded in more than destruction. They had delivered a warning. In the alien worlds that had profited from Earth's fall, fear spread faster than any message could. Governments realized that humans were not just survivors. Humans were strategists. Humans remembered. Humans waited. And waiting had made them powerful. In the following days, reports flooded in. Alien outposts abandoned positions. Mining fleets stopped operations. Communication stations sent anxious messages to central authorities. The galaxy, for the first time in history, looked at humans with respect and fear. A young pilot on the Silent Vengeance whispered to herself as she stared at the shattered alien ships, "We are not the same. We never will be the same." Above Earth, orbital platforms were silent once more. The human fleet loomed like shadows across the solar system, ready to act, but unwilling to strike without reason. Humanity had a choice. They could have destroyed everything. They could have burned the solar system to ashes in revenge, but they did not. They acted with purpose. They acted with patience, and the message was clear to all who heard it. The galaxy can take a planet. The galaxy can scatter a species. It can believe extinction is final. But humans always remember. And when they return, they do not forgive. Earth would rise again, and the galaxy would know what it meant to awaken the patient. After centuries of waiting, humanity finally returned home, not as refugees, but as masters of their destiny. The fleet spread across Sol orbit, securing every moon, asteroid, and strategic point. Cloaking shields were disengaged only when necessary. Earth itself was the ultimate prize, scarred but still alive. Oceans had shrunk. Continents were broken. Forests were gone. The planet's surface bore the weight of millennia of neglect. The first landing teams descended carefully. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers stepped onto the cracked soil. Their boots pressed into dust that had once held life, laughter, and civilization. Many fell silent, overwhelmed by the enormity of what had been lost and what could be rebuilt. Terraforming drones began work immediately. Atmosphere scrubbers removed the last toxic traces of centuries of exploitation. Seed banks, preserved aboard the fleet for millennia, were planted in hydroponic farms and open soil wherever possible. Oceans were restored slowly, pumping water from preserved reserves and melting ice harvested from frozen moons. But humanity did not rebuild Earth as it had been. They rebuilt it as it needed to be. A world strong enough to survive any threat. Cities rose with defensive structures embedded in their cores. Buildings could withstand both alien bombardment and natural disaster. Underground bunkers linked by tunnels stretched across continents. Orbiting platforms acted as shields and sentries, ready to defend the planet at a moment's notice. People returned not only to live but to remember. Museums and memorials told the story of the fall. Schools taught the history of survival, endurance, and patience. Humanity's legacy was no longer a story of death. It was a story of return, of careful and deliberate victory. Yet even in peace, the fleet remained in orbit. Humans had learned that safety could never be assumed. Alien civilizations had underestimated them once. They would not make the same mistake twice. Children born on New Terra now ran in parks above the restored soil of Earth, never having seen the planet before. For them, stories of burned cities and shattered oceans were not nightmares. They were lessons. They were warnings that humanity's strength came not only from its technology, but from its will to survive and its memory of injustice. And across the galaxy, whispers spread. Earth is alive. Humanity is patient. And humanity remembers. The galaxy learned a final truth. You can burn a world. You can scatter a species. You can believe extinction is permanent. But if even one human survives, one seed remains, one memory endures, they will return. And they will never forget.